Good morning. Would you mind doing
Not
that
at
for
all.
me? Thank you. I'm Garnetta Barnett. I do work in the office with Brad, and he asked me if I would do this presentation for him. He is out of town on business today. I did tell him I would do it on the agreement that he took my name off of his presentation because I do not work with this. I will not be able to answer your questions about this. I will do my very best to present this so that it does make sense. But if you have questions or if you feel like I may have misrepresented something as I was talking about this, please use that soapbox address to put those questions in. Brad will address those when he gets back. He also said if you have questions that are specific to your district, if your setup is changing in some way and you need some help with that, he is willing to help you one-on-one to help get those things set up correctly. So what we're going to be looking at today is that point of the synchronization between your point-of-sale system and your Infinite Campus. And the reason that's important is we need those socioeconomic statuses for a lot of things in Infinite Campus. It gets used on your testing, what those scores are broke down by the socioeconomic status. It gets used for the student fee waivers and for Seek at Risk. We keep track of that. You get extra money for the kids that are on free lunch. And a lot of state and federal programs need to know how many kids that you have on that. So it's very important that that information get into Infinite Campus.
It also impacts your E-rate funding, so it's very important there
Yes.
too.
Also, keys. There's a lot of things, and some of it we need to know for the individual student, not just a certain rate for the number of kids that you have. So it's very important those get in there. What we're going to be looking at today are the things that you need to do. You need to establish a process for this synchronization. You need to know how to know that it's right so that you have some quality assurance checks that the numbers look right, how to do some troubleshooting, and where to get help. So those are the things that we're going to be looking at today. There are numerous state and federal reports that utilize meal status from campus, which is the system of record, for districts not using Infinite Campus as their point of sale or those on district-wide community eligibility provision. The meal status must be imported from the food service point of sale. This data synchronization is like a dance. I think Brad put that in there for me because he knows I like to do ballroom dancing. And it is like that. You have to work together. You have to watch what one partner's doing so that these things come up and you keep the things matching. That synchronization matches on the SSID. That's what connects your point of sale over to the Infinite Campus system. And so we have to keep those two equal to each other. For your CEP districts, you will have some kids in Infinite Campus that will be marked as free or reduced that are not marked that way in your food service system. Your food service system uses the ones that come in on the, I'm drawing a blank as to what it's called. Let's see if he has it written down. No, not from the point of sale. It's, they don't collect those household applications for the kids. And so they use just the direct certification. That was the word I was looking for. And they put those in, but then you have these additional kids who may lose some money on their KEYS funding because they're not directly certified, but they would qualify based on income. So it's very important that you don't have the synchronization on for those CEP districts, but that you do have it on for schools that are not CEP. And this is particularly important in one where you do not have a full CEP, a partial CEP. It's very important that it be turned on for the ones that are not community eligibility, and that you have it turned off for the ones that are community eligibility. So when you're starting out with setting this up, and most of you have had this set up for years, generally when this changes is if your district becomes a CEP district, where previously you had been, just everything was coming over from your point of sales and you need to make some adjustments to it, but you need to have a process set up. You need to know who's going to be responsible for each of these different things that happen. The major responsibilities that you need to look at are listed there. Who's going to download that direct certification file? Who will set up the data sync between the point of sale and the Infinite Campus? Who will check the accuracy of those free and reduced data, NIC, against the food service program? And who will periodically check the point of sale import for success of data synchronization and resolve errors? And how will we communicate if there's a problem? Those are the things that you need to work in your district to determine for this. So once you've figured out who's going to be responsible for these things, these are the things that you need to do. First thing you need to do is stop your current point of sale import into Infinite Campus. This is for everybody at the end of the year, that this is your process for getting ready for next year. Then you want to roll forward your point of sale into the school year for 17-18. After you do that, you want to change the year to 17-18 in the IC data import mapping. And then you want to turn off the data synchronization, turn it back on between the two once you get both of them set to next year. Again, you're not going to do this until after your end of year and everything. This is getting ready for next year. In June, you want to stop that import. You do this by going to this screen in Infinite Campus, and you can see the path is right there. And in front of that address, you just want to put a couple of stars so that it won't read as the correct address. That's what will stop it. There is an active button on this. Some people thought that by unchecking that active button that should stop it. It doesn't. So you will need to change that IP address so that it doesn't work. Putting the stars in it makes it real easy to go back and take those out, and then that way it's ready to set up again once you've made your changes. The deadline for doing this is on the next page. Deadline is July the 1st, and you need to have that set up by then so that when the new files start coming in, you don't corrupt old data. We've had that happen in previous years, and the cleanup is a little bit yucky. Try to avoid doing that. Make sure you get this turned off so that it doesn't continue to import into the wrong year. The food service will roll their point of sale system into the school year 17-18 and preparing to process applications beginning on July 1. When this is finished, food service will notify the KSIS contact that the point of sale is ready for school year 17-18. Once they've notified you that it's ready, you want to have your eligibility wizard updated to 17-18. And this one you're going to go to, oh, there's the map right there. FRAM eligibility import wizard, and you're going to go to that and then select your current year's data import mapping and click edit. So we're going to pick the one that's currently there. We're going to edit that. And then when we edit that, we update it by selecting the school year. And so you're going to switch that to 17-18. And then if you have an existing file, you could select continue from this point. He does have a question in his notes here that says, will I need to update any other values for the point of sale data import mapping? No, not if you're keeping your same point of sale system. The data values you map for the point of sales import file in 16-17 should remain the same. If you do have a change, I would contact Brad and get him to work with you to make sure you get that set up correctly. Once you have changed that so that your year is updated, you want to go back to that page where we put those double asterisks. You want to remove those and click save, and then you want to test your connection to make sure that everything is still working okay. So here's a brief checklist of items that should be done during the point of sale data import update process. You will stop the data synchronization, Perform the POS rollover, adjust the data import mapping to school year 17-18, and then restart the data synchronization. The point-of-sale file import should be checked at least on a monthly basis to ensure it's working properly. Finally, you can check the free and reduced paid counts in the point-of-sale. Please do this regularly throughout the year. The worst thing you want to have happen is to discover at the end of the year that your system quit working back 3 or 4 months ago, and now you've got corrupted data in there that you have to clean up. You want to find it. We import those files once a month, so if you're checking it once a month, you'll find it if there's been a problem, and you'll want to get it corrected then. Your direct certification imports have to be updated as well for your school year 17-18. The process works the same as with the point-of-sale import mappings. Since all CEP districts import DC directly into campus, it's important that this be done prior to importing any DC files beginning in July of 2017. Again, if you put that in and you put 2017 data back into the 2016, it's going to corrupt your data, and we don't want to have to clean that up again. So on this one, we're going to talk about how you're going to update your DC import mapping. And again, you need to select the correct year for that, and that will update it. Everything else is still going to stay the same. Everything's in the right files. You just need to be selecting which year you want to import those mappings into. So let's look at some troubleshooting for our import. So what could go wrong? When something appears awry, here are a few areas to check for diagnosis. I would begin with the FRAM scheduled import log. Look there to see when the last successful sync was done. If that has been unsuccessful, then you can look at what was wrong with the communication between the point of sale and IC. Presuming that it's worked in the past, you want to check the configuration hasn't changed. Verify the username and password are correct. The folder name for IC eligibility file is still the same. A file is being produced since the rollover, and if you have a new point-of-sale server, your IP address for the server is the same as before. If you have low, free, and reduced percentages, then look at your point-of-sale import mapping under the Eligibility Import Wizard. Select your import mapping and import the most current IC eligibility file. Ensure that no values are missing from the mapping for homeless, migrant, etc., and then you will want to verify the scheduled import log as well as any other errors that need to be resolved. We're going to discuss that in further detail. So I want to discuss the scheduled import log more and give you resolution steps for the common errors. Locate the scheduled import log by going to the FRAM Eligibility Import Wizard, Scheduled Imports. You may need to ask your IC contact person for rights to this tool. So that's showing you right where it is. And then on the second tab, you'll click on the first entry to see the details. Then click on the latest log file to view the details. You should review this even if you have a successful import, as you may have issues with your point of sales importing mapping. The report shows the details of the scheduled import as shown in the next slide. So let's look over here, and there's some details it shows. And he's blown that up bigger so that you can see what those lines say. Here's the data import report from campus. You'll see a similar report for the DC imports as well as the point of sale data synchronization. The concepts are the same. What was successful and unsuccessful. Roll down the report until you see error warning section. Focus on the errors. For your point of sale import, you are matching on the SSID from the point of sale against campus. The SSIDs must be an exact match. Any mismatch will result in an error. In the example above, the preschool students have a social security number assigned to them in the point of sale, and they should have an SSID. They need to be enrolled in campus to obtain that. If the student has what appears to be a valid SSID and the entry of state ID not found appears, then a discrepancy exists between campus and your point of sale. Change the SSID and your point of sale to match what is in campus. Duplicate entries show as multiple matches found. Merge these enrollment records in Campus. You can generally ignore the warnings in Campus. So here are some of the common errors that you might see and the resolution for those. We've discussed the state ID and the multiple matches. With the end data before the start date, you are attempting to import the prior school year's point of sales data extract into the current school year. With an invalid field name, you have a record type, such as Medicaid, that is being imported from your point of sale system that's not included on the point of sales import mapping. To fix the import, the current point of sales data sync file and map the Medicaid value, as noted earlier, you can generally ignore those warning messages. We also have pushed down some ad hocs for you in the state published folder to help you with finding issues. The first one that's there is the FRAM transposed meal eligibility dates. That's what happens, we said, when you import those records into the wrong year. And so if you see anything on that, those are the ones we're going to need to clean up. So that's one thing you definitely don't want to find. The other two are for missing eligibility records. One of them you can run for the whole district. The other one you have to select a school and run it by school. So depending on how you're wanting to look at that, those are out there. Any child that's on that missing eligibility report is showing as paid. And that may be correct. They may be a student who should be paid, but it is a good idea to look at those. You can get them to go off of this record by marking them paid in the system so that they don't show on there anymore. But if you've got some kids that you are pretty sure should be free or reduced and they're showing up on there, something maybe happened that import's not coming in correctly like it should. Our last page has the information about where you can get some help. There's a technical reference guide that's posted on this link. And Campus Community obviously has a lot of things that you can search for out there to help you with Infinite Campus and your point of sale. Most important thing from this slide, don't ask me any questions about this. Ask Brad Blunt. His information is up there. I will help you with most anything else, but I know nothing about this synchronization, and I hope I didn't say anything to confuse anybody.
We did have a few questions come in, and I don't think that most of them are going to be anything that you can answer. There's one about an error that they are getting that looks to me like maybe some kind of a programming issue. They're getting a message that says the date must be within 100 years of today's date.
Oh.
And it has a value of 12/31/1899. So it sounds like maybe there's something in the file that's maybe a blank or something that's throwing a default date into. So
Well, as I said at the beginning of this, Brad will look at these questions when he comes back, and we will be posting those answers to your questions. I'm sorry that he wasn't able to be here today, but he will get that information for you.
there's one question here that I think maybe with Mike Mock's help, we might be able to answer. Which should occur first? IC active year to be 17-18 or POS rollover? Or as long as the asterisks are there, it doesn't matter. I don't believe switching the active year has any impact to the POS
As long
import.
as the stars are there, it's not
Giving you
gonna
good
matter.
feedback too over there.
Yes.
If,
We'll confirm that, but go ahead, Mike.
so the stars will stop the import process. We don't want to, if you roll forward, you'll have those students there 17-18, but we're still reporting on the 16-17 school year, so it should be affecting that.
Right. Changing that active year mostly impacts what's visible on the portal, which enrollment's highlighted. I don't think there's any impact at all to the POS functionality.
Right, obviously, it looks at that date that's selected on the mapping, not what you have currently in the system. If it was looking at what was in the system, it wouldn't be important to make sure that was right. And so that's why those have to be changed, so that you don't corrupt the wrong year. So obviously, it does not look at that.